Good afternoon on what is a bright, clear, but chilly and blustery day. It is Friday the 4th of February. I'm back in the reading nook with a nice hot cup of tea and a parcel to continue unboxing. Now, out of this I have pulled some games already, so there's that. And the next one, there's that. Okay, we'll put it down there. And then the next thing to come out of this box is, just tidy it up, so is that Talislanta, the Savage Land 5e. So this is written for use with Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. See, it's published by. Oh, this is actually published by Chaosium. That's interesting. They haven't done a lot of pushed that, have they? I have to say. But it's an interesting start. This is a step into a market that Chaosium has tended to keep away from. So 5th edition, and it's also of an older role-playing game or setting that's been around for quite a long time. It's gone through the Talislanta setting has gone through multiple editions over the years, and it's always been touted as something different to Dungeons and Dragons. It was always the role-playing game which didn't have any elves in it, but it always seemed to have different monster species which did have pointed ears. So you wondered how different it was, and at the same time, it was always put in the same kind of bracket as, say, Emperor of the Petal Throne, but more likely Skyrim of Jarun as being a sort of like a sword and planet kind of setting that was radically different to what you expected in normal fantasy. But anyway, let's have a look. This is my essentially, so I got a chance to get hold of a copy of this at a reasonable price, so I decided to grab a copy. So, discover the dangerous past of the Talislanta setting in this post-apocalyptic fantasy world powered by the 5th edition of the world's most famous role-playing game. Talislanta, the Savage Land, takes place just a short time after the Great Disaster, which the inhabitants of the era referred to as the Fall. This period is like a nightmarish version of our own Dark Ages. All knowledge of spellcasting has been lost. Maps are nearly non-existent, and much of the world is unknown. Most of those who survived the Fall are illiterate and governed by superstition. There are no nations, city-states, or even laws. In their place, tribes of warriors, nomads, slavers, and refugees struggle to survive in a hostile wasteland, torn by centuries of warfare and a malevolent magical maelstrom known as the Jaya. Do you dare venture into this savage land? This brutal and primal update to the Talislanta setting is fully compatible with the 5th edition of the world's most famous role-playing game and features exciting new rules such as Talislanta races and alignment rules, new rules for tribes, renown and mass battles, classless character creation and play, all new skills, feats and magic, new monsters and enemies, other game mechanics designed to evoke the post-apocalyptic fantasy world of Talislanta. Now, fantasy in the post-apocalyptic setting are not new bedfellows, but they're certainly uncommon. When you mostly think of the post-apocalyptic setting, you think of science fiction to varying degrees. So if you're thinking about the immediate period, then you're looking at something like the Twilight 2000, where the apocalypse was essentially last week. And you're surviving in the post-nuclear period. And these settings tend to have apocalypse caused by nuclear exchange, biological or chemical warfare, or something like an alien invasion, or an alien world crashing onto the planet. Unless you have things like more gonzo settings like Gamma World. But fantasy and apocalypse do go together. You're thinking of things like Invasion of Hell in Planet Apocalypse, which is a more recent one, and there's a role-playing game for Ubiquity whose name has escaped me because, hey, I only mentioned it this week when I did an unboxing of this, and also Midnight from Fantasy Flight Games, which deals with a Tolkien-esque world, where the dark masters, the dark powers like Sauron, have prevailed. So the thing is, when you've got this post-apocalyptic setting, you've got a world and you're going along and you just apply this apocalyptic setting and it upsets the apple cart and it's a whole new world. So most role-playing games take their starting point, of course, from that post-apocalyptic point. The disaster has happened. Here we go. So let's have a look at Talislanta, which is a case in point. And we open up. I can bet there's no ice cream van in Talislanta. Again, you know, it's a bright, clear, chilly day. It's February and there's an ice cream van. So he's got a map of the world. And what is Talislanta? It is a dark age, a time of war and strife. The last kingdoms have fallen and the old cities lie in ruins. The sorcerer kings have gone, slain by their own creations or fled to other realms. With them are all knowledge of magic, leaving only primitive ritual, superstition, and a constant struggle to survival in a harsh and unforgiving lands. And to make my point, to clarify my point, we have an advert from Talislanta, circa 1987, included in that introduction. See what I said? No elves. It's a fantasy role-playing game, first published in 1986. Over the course of the past 30 years, there have been 5 editions of the game, and you can download free PDFs of the game as well. And was inspired by the fantasy novels of Jack Vance and other sources such as H.P. Lovecraft's The Dreamlands of Unknown Kadath, or Michael Moorcock's Elric novels and The Travels of Marco Polos. And again, it's another role-playing game which it says is not based upon traditional Western mythology, so it doesn't have the Tolkien-esque trappings of games like D&D. So yes, you have things like Jarun is another comparison, because it's a fantasy game without the trappings of Tolkien. We have introducing the Savage Land and bringing Talislanta to D&D, and how is the Savage Land different in here, explaining essentially why is this different to any other D&D product here. And then we get into epic gaming, campaign style, and retro style gaming, and the encounter. So we're talking about the types of game, what the type of game this is, and how it can be played. And the rules themselves cover renown, major and legendary characters, mass actions, and basically so you can run big battles as well as your standard adventures. So we've got rules for mass combat, and it says we have section on the player characters, mass combat and individual combat, because essentially with that you are running, you've got the game going on in the background, and then you focus in upon the characters' individual actions. I've done that sort of thing with Legends of the Five Rings, and we got to, so here we actually chat to do, we've got characters and tribes, and creating a savage land character, choosing archetypes, races and backgrounds and classes. So we've got the standard classes, and it's sort of like the following classes can't be chosen: so bard, cleric, druid, paladin, sorcerer, warlock or wizard. And there are limitations upon the type of characters that can be played. So barbarian, fighter are known, but some of the things like, you know, the eldritch knight archetype can't be chosen, only champion or battle master. Barbarian, the path of the totem warrior can't be chosen, only the path of the berserker. So it's possible also to play without classes. So basically you're going to get to the option is to use the D&D rules to play a Savage Land game for an experience as close to the original Talislanta rules as possible, to eliminate the use of traditional character classes. Instead of choosing a class or character, it uses the following standard ability table, and that gives a bit more flexibility and organic development for your characters. It means also the game is slightly more complex because the players have more choice. We also have an alternate alignment system, and dealing with things like character backstory and the death and succession in the setting. So it is different there. And then we get into the PC archetypes and last survivors of the bygone age. So we've got the first piece of colour artwork there. So we've got the different races, and we'll start like the Amazi. Nice illustrations of them. So this is sort of, I want to say, you know, this has sort of been, this has actually come through. Actually, it's a book via Nocturnal, whom Chaosium is now sort of like publishing a lot of their works, and that. So these games aren't getting quite the so it's quite the coverage that I think perhaps they deserve. I mean, Chaosium is busy with so many different games, obviously Call of Cthulhu and RuneQuest, and these lesser games sort of like sneak in under the radar, or sneak out under the radar, as it were. So we've got Naradas and Reavers and the Shan and the Shaka. Again, different choices for the player characters, backgrounds, and so on. So lots of options here in terms of what you can play. Warlocks and Yarn, all very different looking races that you would normally expect to find in your typical fantasy race. Beastmen and Boglins. Sure. Okay, just Boglins. So yeah, there's quite a long list of these different races and options for the players, like Talosians, and they're very Ray Harryhausen, which sort of out the Jason of the Argonauts. We've got Umar. So this is quite a long list of. Let's just show you. So characters and tribes. So that's a. So yeah, that's really just sort of like, that's just in this book. You've got, those are the options for all your characters in terms of background and tribes and race. And we've got skills as well. And then magic. Don't know how this is going to work, but obviously it's going to be different, more primitive. Using primal symbols that you see there, basically primitive ritual magic, and using superstition to get the same effects. And then, so really, that's very much a short section on magic. It's really just that. Backed up with a page or two, and then we get into the territories and really sort of the wider background to the setting. So, you know, we go into the ruins of the Four Nations. We see just how barren this world is after the Great Apocalypse, into the Fall, as they call it. But you know, we've got other areas which still sort of like feel obviously it's feel as if they're blighted. And the idea of you know, the damage done. You've got here actual images of the lost sea with a beached boat there. So quite a long section of just the places around the lands, and then we have a bestiary. I'm not going to show you all of these creatures, but you've got quite a lot there, like an Angart, so almost like a spider thing, basically a hideous hybrid of arachnoid and demon. Beasts of burden. Crypt worms. So that's Colossus, and there you've got the crypt worm there. The Colossus is there. As you can see them, there's the crypt worm. Quite nasty. Demons, earth demons, fire demons, ice demons. To mist demons and metal demons. But it's a really nice piece of artwork as well. Quite a little bit dark perhaps, but and it's all clearly laid out, really easy to read. And you've also, you know, even got wood and stone demons. So you've got quite a lengthy section of monsters, bestiaries. Got a lurker, a lycramorph. So lots of those. An Ogrophant, which echoes the Oliphant. It actually echoes the Oliphant of the Lord of the Rings, and the Wrath. Well, that, yeah, well, you know, that's not at all like a xenomorph. So yeah, quite an extensive bestiary, and then we have random encounter tables. I'll just show you those. So there we go. So, look through those, and then we go into discussion of the ruins which can be found. And essentially, that's all because you know, you're going to be, that's where the player character is going to be exploring for the most part. Early Achaean ruins, Torquirian ruins, Archaean cloud cities, and goods and equipment, of course. So yeah, this is going to be interesting, as I say, to dig into, because again, it's new to me. I've always wanted to have a look at it, but I just never have. Here's the weapons of armour of the ruined lands after the fall. But, so this will be quite interesting, and we've never sort of like fairly advanced technology, even here. So we have like a Thraxian flame fire thrower there. So that's all the equipment. So you've got some magical items as well. So everything. Then we've got notable tribes of the Savage Lands. So you can use those as NPCs, or you know, player characters can align themselves with them, or even form their own tribes, I presume. And there's the character for this version of Talislanta. So yeah, that is Talislanta, the Savage Land, 5th edition update of the setting, following the Great Disaster, published by Nocturnal via Chaosium. I think it's interesting looking at it to see more of what ought to make of it. I actually think that it's because it's to an extent an unknown, worth checking out, I think. Because you never know with these sort of things if you're going to find it interesting or not, because it's non-traditional fantasy. So yeah, thank you very much for watching another unboxing in the Nook. If you've enjoyed this one, then please do click the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in the Nook, where you will see me out here with a parcel and a book or game which I will unbox and talk about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea, then please do hit the subscribe button. Thanks again for watching, and we'll be back again soon with another unboxing in the Nook soon. Bye for now.